It is 7 p.m. Hereby call this meeting of the Londonderry Heritage Commission to order this 27th day of July, 2023. First item on our agenda here is the approval of minutes from our prior meeting. I did look them over. I did not find anything that I thought needed to be changed. Does anybody else have any suggestions or?
Yep, neither did I, yeah. There isn't anything coming forth, so, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of May 25th, 2023.
So moved.
Presented.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Minutes are approved. Moving on to our design review applications. We have an application for design review of a site plan to construct a 50,180 square foot building containing offices, sales area, and service bays for an automobile dealership facility, along with associated site improvements at 36 Industrial Drive, map 28, lot 18-3. Scannell Properties applicant and Bollinger Properties LLC and 5N Associates GP owners.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Jim Petropoulos. I'm a civil engineer with Hayner Swanson Inc., doing business at 3 Congress Street. Tonight I'll be representing Scannell Industries. Unfortunately, they have been delayed in travel across the country. So what I'm going to try to do is just read into the record. We're seeking or have made a design review submitted to the planning board in which we're seeking a site plan for a project in the northwest corner of Londonderry. I'll be brief tonight. I'll give you an overview of the project and then answer any questions you may have. Let me get you located first. The property is in the northwest corner of Londonderry, at the corner of Pettingill Road and Industrial Road, and the actual address is 36 Industrial Drive. This is an 8.3 acre parcel located in your GB Gateway Business Zone. Abutters to the site, to the north, Kluber Manufacturing. To the east is Industrial Drive and an undeveloped lot across the street. To the south, Pettingill, undeveloped lot across the street. And to the west, an undeveloped parcel. The property is currently owned by the Nash Tamposi interests. It's a very visible site. Formerly used as sand gravel removal operations for many years. As you can see on the aerial photo, the site contains a combination of kind of scrubby wood growth, forest, and open areas. And the grade commission is generally from the south to the north. Pettingill Road intersection with Industrial Drive sits up at about elevation 66. The main body of the site's about elevation 50. And it goes down to elevation 30, closer to the Kluber site. Mike, if you may, next slide, please. So we have filed a site plan that shows a 50,180 square foot automobile sales and service and sales facility, and it's intended to be the new home for Tesla. The Tesla, as you know, is a global company. They are makers of electric vehicles. This would be the first of such facilities here in New Hampshire. Some key elements to the project: we're accessing the site from a single driveway off of the kind of the northern end of the property, off of Industrial Drive. We will not have access off of Pettingill. We will contain about 305 parking spaces, and that's a little bit of a misnomer. As you know, automotive service and sales facilities have a lot of cars in the lot. Some of them are customer parking, some are visitor parking, some are employee parking, some is vehicle storage, and some are vehicle sales. We do have a retaining wall, that darker line on the north and west side of the site. As I mentioned, the grade kind of falls off in those locations, so we're using a retaining wall to create really a flat rectangle for this development. Site will be serviced by utilities coming from Industrial Drive. With regard to stormwater, we're proposing 2 surface-type stormwater practices on the low side of the west wall to accommodate stormwater runoff. Next slide, please, Mike. Our landscape plan that has been submitted, it was part of our plan set, and the focus was really in that green space along Patton Gill and along Industrial Drive. 166 trees and shrubs to be planted. I did not forget the deep purple lilacs this time. They are baked into the design. And as you know, Mr. Chairman, Londonderry has some specific guidelines for landscaping and open space within the parking areas. I will tell you that we'll be making waivers for several of those through the planning board approval process. Ground cover essentially is lawn on the Pettingill side and the industrial side. And then on the low side of the wall will be a conservation mix left to naturalize over time. Next drawing, Mike, is the photometrics. Thank you. Plan prepared in accordance with your regulations. The site will employ a combination of poles and wall packs. This is LED lighting, full cutoff luminaires, fixture height approximately 28 feet above grade, and no spillover onto any abutting properties. I'll take a minute now to walk through the building plans. As mentioned, it's a one-story building, 50,180 square feet. It's a rectangle, 192 feet by 238, a flat-roofed building. We have a parapet in the front that measures 26 feet in height. The exterior materials in the front will be a combination of metal panels and fixed glass. And the main body of the building will be tilt-up concrete panels. The color schemes is really the Tesla branding. It's a combination of light and dark grays, as well as red accent strips in the front. Our application in design review did include project signage in accordance with your regulations. The site sign will contain a pylon sign, or ground sign as you call it, near the driveway entrance off of Industrial Drive. I believe code allows you 100 square feet. We're somewhere in the vicinity of 15 by 6, which is about 90 square feet. And we have several directional and wayfinding signs within the project. The building signs, as you see, are 2 signs proposed, and in aggregate, they do not exceed 100 square feet. On a corner lot such as this, I believe we're allowed more than 1 building-mounted sign. We have the word Tesla written over the red band, and then in the upper left corner, we have the Tesla logo. Both of those measure approximately 97 square feet. Next one, Mike, and actually there's 3 of them that we submitted. Oh, no, I was going to the perspective, the colored ones. There you go. So a project did supply perspectives. This is as seen from the Pettingill Industrial Road intersection. Looking down, you can see the elevation will be slightly lower than that high point. You can see the trees, and this is reflective of the landscape plan. You can see the trees in the perspective. I think there's 2 more, Mike. There's one aerial looking at the front of the building, kind of an oblique view. And you can see that rectangular shape, and in the upper right corner, you can see our driveway access to Industrial Drive. You can also see the light poles. And then lastly, the perspective, a little bit of close-up on the front entry facility. So in summary, Mr. Chairman, Tesla is a well-recognized global business. They've incorporated many of their branding elements into their building and site package. And they're excited to hopefully have a new facility here in Londonderry. And with that, I'll be happy to try to answer any of your questions.
First thing I noticed is that there don't seem to be any mechanicals shown on the roof. The only reason I'm asking about that is because the roof is going to be very visible from the road with the elevation. So I'm curious, are there gonna be mechanicals installed on the roof, or will they be somewhere else around the building?
I think they are rooftop units. I think actually in the elevation, Mike, if you peel back a couple, Yeah, I think that, actually, no, it's the back of the parapet. I don't know the answer to that question. I will have to find out from the project architect. Obviously, if, your point is well taken, if we're looking down, let's get them screened. And
Right,
I'm assuming that's where
exactly.
you're headed.
Yep.
So I'll make a note, screening of rooftop units.
Awesome.
Yeah, it looks like a good design to me. I think it's, if everything follows what there is in these illustrations, it'll look great.
That's such a pretty picture. It does represent full mature growth of trees, certainly not
Yes.
day one. But I think they did tell me that they tried to incorporate, they looked at our landscape plan and picked those species to put in this perspective.
Yep.
I think it looks good. I think the design is certainly in the location where that is compatible with the other buildings. I think what's important up in industrial areas and office parks, especially here, is the quality of the landscaping.
Yes, yeah. I think that's what
And-
what makes it. I mean, it looks like
I think-
a Tesla facility anyway, so
Yeah.
that's,
If I may remind the group, the two variances were approved to allow this in the GB zone. I should have mentioned that.
The sign base, is that just gonna be concrete with nothing, no design concepts or anything on it? Like, there's no stone or anything, it's just a flat concrete base?
Yeah, it looks like the concrete base is subsurface, so it will not be raised.
Okay,
Yeah. There might be a little bit of 6-inch reveal there, 4-inch concrete reveal on the pad, but the sign itself sits up 15 feet by 6 feet.
okay, gotcha.
Do you know what the dimension from the ground level to that last character there?
From ground to top
Yeah.
of sign, sir?
Because what I would suggest to just kind of soften the blow a little bit is put some type of garden or flowers around the base of it to soften the sign up, but
Sure.
I don't have a problem with the sign.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not mistaken, the front of this building where the entryway is gonna be facing Pettingill Road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it looks good. Nice job with the landscaping.
Is there a section with charging stations here?
Yes, there is. There's approximately 10 EV charging stations in the back left corner of this site for customers of this facility, yes.
Okay, so those will not be public? Well,
I don't
Tesla
think-
has some
yeah.
designated charging stations, right? Don't they have a special charger they require or something?
the hookup is Tesla, but I think it's gonna become the universal hookup at some point, probably in the near future,
the-
but right
The
now it
EV
is.
spaces are for this facility. I do know that just over the border in Mass, just south of Nashua, Tesla has a bank of 20 EV for the public use. I don't think that's what they intend to do here.
Yeah, I think the bulk of their charging stations are for Tesla only, but I think there's some that they've opened up to the general public.
I can ask.
And then some of those stations, Elon Musk provides entertainment for those that are recharging, because it doesn't happen overnight.
Entertainment is another committee, right? That's,
Yeah, that's not for us. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions if there was such a thing here.
What are the hours of operation?
I don't know, sir. I will find out and report that to the planning board. Generally, dealerships, we're seeing, we just finished the dealership report in Nashua. Generally, we're seeing hours 7 to 5, 7 to 7, and then Saturday hours as well. Obviously, if you've got a vehicle service, they like to be open early in the morning so people can drop off on their way into work. So I'm going to guess in that range, but I will make sure that's part of the site plan process. Usually we list it on the drawing, but I don't think I have it there.
Yeah, it probably hasn't got to the point yet, because it will be coming before the planning board, so
Oh, yes.
I think any commission member can certainly attend a planning board meeting.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from commissioners?
That's it for me.
We will recommend to approve as submitted.
Yeah, I think there was Jim's suggestion about the base.
Yes, I wrote down 4 things, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Screening of rooftop units, plants at the base of the pylon sign, a question about the EV spaces being public or used for the facility, and then note the hours of operation on the site plan.
Perfect.
So, got it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice
You're
evening.
welcome.
You as well.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, our next application is for design review for a site plan and subdivision to construct a 30,000 square foot office building and associated site improvements. Michael's Way, zoned in the Woodmont Planned Unit Development, Pillsbury Realty Development LLC owner, and Nickerson Designs LLC applicant.
Gentlemen, if you have business cards, I'd appreciate it for the notes.
No money in here.
That's so the names get spelled right in the minutes.
You get a card?
I don't.
Yeah, I tend to butcher the names otherwise. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name's Chris Nickerson. I'm here with Bob Duvall from TF Moran, and Kevin Smith is in the audience from Pillsbury Realty. Here to present a plan for a 30,000 square foot medical office building in the Woodmont Commons development. Actually, it was about 2 years ago now that was up in front of this board and the planning board for our first 42,000 square foot building that we had done on the corner of Main Street and Governor Bell. And that building's really been a tremendous success. So, and, certainly successfully clinically from a business operations success. But, probably more importantly, I'd give credit to this board, credit to the planning board and the folks who sort of thought about the PUD in kind of a future Londonderry there to think of what maybe a different kind of planning would look like. And our folks just couldn't be happier with the end result. Just, talking broad strokes, street parking is utilized, which, in some communities is kind of a novel thing. If you drove by our site today during the middle of the day, lots of street parking utilized, lots of people using sidewalks, lots of people enjoying the amenities inside of the community. And we certainly hope that, building that we've done already, the building that we're here to talk about tonight, continue to sort of be a spark to further development and probably what the board had envisioned for Woodmont and for Greater Londonderry. So that being said, just to get folks oriented inside of the development, we got Route 102, Pillsbury Road, our initial site, which was a 42,000 square foot building. And then the current building that we're talking about is essentially on the corner of Main Street and Woodmont Ave. And I have highlighted in the green, I guess, shaded area that we have here, kind of just due east of where the 603 Brewery is. And to give some context, at least for the site right now, basically talking about a dirt pile. Site's pad ready, ready to go, and quite honestly, if you were to look at Bob's topography plans or what we're doing there, at least from a site work standpoint, it pretty much mimics a pad-ready site that is out there today.
But no neighbors next door.
Not yet, anyway. So soon though, they are, we had a meeting with the folks from the Baldwin the other day, and really, really great people, and really excited to be able to get started in the community, like what we're doing, obviously, and on, medical specialty services side. We love what they're doing for the community and bringing kind of a different lifestyle for more advanced folks. And I think there's a lot of just a lot of synergies between all the different businesses inside of that community. So just from a site layout standpoint, that Bob had prepared a plan for us. We can see Main Street is right kind of at the very corner of our site, 30,000 square foot building. To put things in perspective, like I mentioned previously, the first building that we had constructed is about 42,000 square feet, so just a little bit smaller than our initial build. Most of the parking is located on the rear of the site and then kind of behind the building. And then our main patient entrance is actually to the rear of the building as well. Similar format again to what we had done on our first building, where we have, I'll show you in the architecturals. We have, I guess, what I would call a street face that faces, in this case, Woodmont Ave, very similar to what we had on Main Street for our first building. And then our main patient, wrong slide. And then you can see in the back of the building, obviously where the main parking field is our main patient entrance and then a secondary entrance. And again, very, very similar to the first site that we had done. So, I guess I'd offer that at least on the architectural side of things, we had sort of done a good feedback loop and asked folks what they liked about what we did, what they didn't like about what we did. And the feedback came back that folks were looking for maybe something a little bit more traditional than our first building and something that had more brick. And we, I guess, tried to go all out here in terms of an all brick facade and something that was, very similar look and feel wise to get some continuity. But there was a little bit more traditional also. Other than that, we were at Conservation Commission a couple weeks ago. We have a conceptual planning board discussion, first full week in August. And we like to get some feedback from the board so that we can incorporate it into our plans and keep going there. Beyond that, happy to answer any questions, or if you got any specific questions for Bob, I'm sure he's happy to answer them as well.
Mr. Chairman, could you let me know which elevation? Is that the north side elevation? Is that the elevation that faces 93?
If I can interject.
Yeah, that's what I'm...
What you're looking at right there is if you were standing on the corner of Main Street and Woodmont Ave.
Okay, so that's considered the front?
Yep.
Okay, got it. And what about the east side?
So east facing
Yeah.
93 would be,
So that's the west, that's the east.
that's actually, yes, so right where you're looking at, right where the hand is, that's if you were driving on 93.
Okay, so that's the east side.
Look to your west, but it's the east elevation.
And that other elevation is the south side.
South, correct.
And the north side?
Keep going there. One more. Yep, bingo.
So this is the side that would be facing the woods, basically what is currently forest behind Woodmont?
Actually, so what you're looking at on the slide, or what would be a better representation here, would be the bottom slide there is this face here, which is the north side of the building.
Okay.
And then this face here, which faces Woodmont, would be the west side. So if I'm the person sort of standing here, I'm standing kind of at the corner of Woodmont and Main Street.
And just to, for reference, just north of the building is a couple of large detention ponds. So the nearest next building is probably 500 feet away, the Baldwin. In between them is the detention ponds, shared by both. That's a good slide there. That triangle area is the small entrance to the detention pond. The detention pond extends above 500 feet from south on the north edge of this building to the south edge of Baldwin.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. With regards to, I've personally gone to the doctor over at the building. And one of the things that I did notice, is when I came out, there was an older lady in a wheelchair and her son, and it was pouring like crazy. And the cantilever
Yep.
was short. They couldn't get the car that close, and by the time she got in the car, God bless her, she was soaked. So, I mean, that's attention to detail. I mean, I just thought I'd bring it to your attention.
Yep.
Because if you could modify that a little bit, maybe
Yeah,
it'll be more customer-friendly.
Happy to. Actually, this site, if we pulled up the site plan, it is a little bit, the canopy on the main patient entrance is a little bit closer than our other building. One of the things we run into is that it doesn't necessarily present well in plan, but to get 14 feet of clearance to get like a fire truck under
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
sometimes if we go out into the traveled way or close to it,
understood.
it can make the building look a little out of proportion.
Okay.
But no, happy to look at getting that a little closer to the curb line.
yeah.
So I completely understand.
The window designs, with the exception of the north side, they're all arched windows.
So it's a square window or rectangular,
Right.
and then if you look in the sort of center bay, those have an arch detail on the top. So the surround is arched. Obviously, the center window itself is arched.
Yep,
And then the surrounds to the left and the right, it's the same window type, but we put that sort of arch look on it to dress it up. There's a very similar building that's down in, I shouldn't say very similar, but we took some cues from a building down at Tuscan Village that had a very similar repeat.
So are you gonna repeat that on the north side of the building?
We certainly can if that's the
Yeah,
suggestion of the board. We're more than happy to.
That's my opinion. It's just architecturally, in my opinion, it flows a little bit, and it's a little softer, that's all. Two more questions I had. Now, explain the parking, so I understand where the parking actually is located. I know you have on-site, or street parking,
Yep.
we know that, okay?
So just to sort of help orient folks again,
Yeah.
if, so the primary parking field is to the south of the building, which is kind of like where, and it's upside down plan-wise to where I am here. The south side, and then the east side, meaning the 93 side of the building. Obviously, at our other site, we have a lot more street parking just by virtue of being on essentially all fours. Here, we are only fronting Woodmont Ave, so street parking is much more limited from a just site configuration standpoint than we were on our first site on Main Street.
Okay. Now, I noticed that the driveway to the south side, I assume that there's a buildable lot behind that?
Correct.
The-
it stubs off right there. So I would assume this is buildable. I'm making an assumption.
That's correct.
Now, on the other side, the north side, which is here, you have parking there, and then what happens in that area? The only reason why I'm saying is, and I know it'll come up probably in the planning board, is the fire department's ability, if they build in the backside, whether or not this is gonna be utilized as an exit.
Yeah, that's our intention, is that
Okay.
we're working, you know, the site to the east, meaning essentially between where we are and 93. Pillsbury Realty's retaining it. It's not, you know, I couldn't say what they choose or not choose to do there.
Yep.
But that
Okay.
being said, part of our agreement is that we're providing them easements and faculties to access their site on both sides, meaning here to the north of the building, and then to the south that has the larger driveway there.
Got it, okay. A cornice on the building. Architecturally, I was wondering, what's the detail gonna look like? Do you know?
You know, we didn't really spell it out on here, but I would expect something very similar to what we did on the first building. Height-wise, we're almost identical to what we had in our first building.
Is there any way you could modify it to give it a little bit more detail?
Yep, yeah, absolutely.
You know, instead of just that plain,
Yep.
awesome, that's good. And then the last thing that I was a little concerned about, which has to do with the parking on that north side. And the reason why I say that is, as you come down Main Street, the building's on the corner, and if you look at your site view, you're gonna catch the front of the building, but you're also gonna catch that side, and, you know.
Be the western.
If they don't need it, I would say, take them out,
Yeah, so what
but that's my,
what we can do is, we can go back and look at our parking
sure.
calcs, and if, like, to your point, Mr. Butler, if we don't need it, the sort of two levels of need, I guess I would
Understood.
offer too. There's what's in the regs, and then what, as a user, is a requirement.
Yep.
Our user requirement is 5 per 1,000.
okay,
But if we meet that, and we don't need, particularly the ones closest to that Woodmont,
Yes.
Woodmont and Main Street, we're happy to put some more landscaping there in lieu of parking.
and like I said, it's landscaping, you know, I mean, if you take a look at Michael's Way now, you know, the landscaping is starting to mature out a little bit.
Yeah,
It's looking good. So-
it's got a little more to come
You know,
along, but I
the
think it's.
landscaping along the main thoroughfare there, if it's done right, I think it'll look sharp.
I'm actually glad we're talking about landscaping. I was just looking at the landscaping plan, and I just don't see a planting schedule.
Oh, upper,
might-
I'm looking at the colored,
I
but
may
on
have just
C
missed
four
it,
oh,
but-
it's on, upper, I guess it's
Is,
right-hand corner.
Yeah, the upper right is a full landscape place.
On the wrong page then. Got it. Thank you.
There is purple lilac there, so.
And I'd offer to the board on the landscaping on our first site, we did have some stuff that didn't quite make the winter, but we have since gone and replaced that. And some of that was just by virtue of having sort of pushing things along as fast as we could go and the consequence thereof.
I'm assuming you're applying that knowledge now to this landscaping plan.
Yeah, and I think, actually, Conservation Commission had made a couple suggestions to us as well to make some tweaks. But, you know, we're happy to if this board has any suggestions, make them as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks good. I think it needs a little more, chutzpah behind it a little bit, the design, but the basic design is good. And then, I think if the brickwork is similar to Derry Medical Center, that's good also.
Great.
But I agree with what Jim has said also.
Are you looking for a wide blend or a tight blend?
It's the color, it's a mix, and they call it, it's called Georgetown Blend. And it's a of the colors, one is 60%, a 30%, and a 10% for what that's worth. So this building, based on kind of what we've talked to the folks from Pillsbury about, should have more variation between brick than our previous building, which makes sense because, quite honestly, we got a heck of a lot more here than in the first site.
I don't think that I see anywhere in the design plan anything about signage.
We haven't, and similar to our first building, we're really pretty scant on signage. We may look at revisiting that in the future, just more for wayfinding for folks than anything else. But we try to keep these facilities, maybe vanilla's not the right word, but we try to just focus on sort of the address and the destination, and then once they're inside, help them wayfind or find the practice once they're in.
Okay.
On the side where you have an entrance and an arched window, two windows on the second floor adjacent to it have curved caps. Why couldn't you put two on the first floor? That whole section stands out by itself.
Yeah, we certainly could. More than happy to if that's the purview, if that's the suggestion of the board. So just if it's all right to summarize, just so we got our notes right, what we had sort of as suggestions were, one, to extend the canopy on the main patient drop-off closer to the curb. Two, look at the cornice detail and see if we couldn't just make that a little more stylish. Three, I guess I'd call it arch header detail. Two, on the Woodmont, first floor Woodmont Ave side of the building. And then similar here, arched on the north side of the building. And then look at see if we can check our parking ratios, and if there is excess capacity, look at removing and instead of re-landscaping a couple spots at the front intersection of Main Street and Woodmont Ave.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
No, I don't have any more.
Okay.
I think it's good
Excellent.
Thank you.
So we're gonna make a recommendation to the,
to the planning board.
Yeah. Recommend to approve with suggested changes.
yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, that is it for our design reviews. Moving on to other business, we will begin a joint meeting with the planning board to discuss the lookbook.
Mr. Chair, can we take a 5-minute recess? I got some members' photographs just as I've been sitting here, and I'd like to load them on the computer to make sure that they can be considered.
Sure, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Yeah, Ian had a problem getting photos through, so I told her to do one at a time.
I've got them.
You get them, okay, good.
Thank you.
Let's reconvene at 7:45. This meeting back to order. Our next business is the joint meeting of the Planning Board and the Heritage Commission discussing the lookbook. We did have a whole bunch of submissions for photos that we would like to take a look at. I would look to other commission members. Do we like to just go picture by picture and discuss? We also have some members of the planning board, if anybody would like to approach to discuss.
Are you gonna have a presentation, Jake?
Oh, no, I did my presentation the first time. Now we're waiting for you guys to stuff.
Just for the record, Jake and I disagree with the lookbook. The last one, I think that we should discontinue it and put pictures up in that meeting room that they meet in.
Oh,
How many, Mike,
we could do both.
Mike, I want to ask you a question. Really, honestly, how many developers are looking at that book?
Each and every one of them.
Well,
what you say.
we are directing them to, we are pointing it out to them.
Yeah,
I can't speak for what has occurred in the past, but when, there are questions about
okay.
what the town would like to see, our answer is, we do have a lookbook. We encourage you to
Okay.
consult it, so.
Jake, I stand to be corrected.
But I think the point about, a more accessible visual representation in the form of pictures in the conference room is a great idea.
No different than this,
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's a good idea to have them in the room, however.
however. So Jake, we're coming to
I
a
think-
compromise here.
Usually when someone comes in, they want something,
Right.
physical.
I think it's important for us to have a
And,
document
so
to
they can-
reference.
Yeah, but I mean, I've had several compliments, I mean, and some of them are from developers also about the lookbook. It just puts things in perspective of what the town is interested in it. And, I mean, there's not specific things in there, there's a whole bunch of different designs, so at least they can get a flavor and then hopefully come up with their own design about it. But I know when we first did it, it was the Heritage Commission that sat around, we looked at all the photos and gave them a thumbs up or thumbs down, and then it was compiled from there.
And I will, just for my perspective, Mr. Chairman, the lookbook is valuable not only for the pictures, but also for the descriptions and the characterizations of what the town finds
Appealing.
appealing.
Yeah.
And from that standpoint, I think the more specific those comments can be, and we'll try to capture that, we'll capture them. This is obviously the first step in a process, but I think that would be most beneficial both to both of these boards, but also to developers and to the community.
Agreed. In my opinion, like I said, I think it's important that we have a document to reference, pointing them towards pictures. They can kind of glean their own ideas from those pictures, whereas if we're stating what we like about each thing, I think it helps guide them a little bit more. And then even just having it separated into big box retail, for instance, it kind of points to, okay, these are the things we like in our industrial area, for instance, versus a retail area that's a little more resident facing. It just helps to kind of guide their decision-making process, assuming they look at it.
I think more look at it than don't look at it.
Yeah.
I've gotten comments
I'm-
from, like members from other towns that have looked at it and they said, gee, we need one too.
I would assume
Don't
that,
copy our pictures.
yeah, I would assume that they want input because they want to come before us and have us approve their design, not kind of tear it apart and not like anything about it. So behooves them actually to look through the book and try to apply design concepts that they know we're going to like.
I think probably in addition to what our descriptions are, is to have, you know, I think what you talked about, Mike, with something more detail, is architectural terms. I mean, I'm not an architect, you know, but usually if I see something, if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. And then try to come up with a reason why. Let's have to search for reasons why. Even if we could have an architect in the community volunteer some time to, I think as we compile the book.
Be very beneficial to get that perspective.
Yeah.
Quite a while ago, we used to have an architect on the Heritage Commission. That was very helpful. Jim's is very helpful too with the, you know, materials and building design and everything. Has got a lot of experience there that has been extremely helpful.
Please introduce yourself, sir.
Jake Butler, 2 Danbury Court. You know, one thing for me that stuck out when we started this was just updating pictures. There's pictures in the lookbook that aren't necessarily from Londonderry. I think Londonderry is at a point now where we've got a lot of very good-looking buildings in town. Let's kind of update the pictures a little bit, bring them into 2023. Whereas, when was this made? 2013, maybe? 13. So it's a 10-year-old document now.
Dated.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really something that should kind of be a living document, if you will, of every couple years. It's just re-updating pictures. You know, the Derry Medical Center is a perfect example. That's a phenomenal looking building. That should be in our lookbook. So that was kind of my reasoning for bringing it up from the get-go, was let's get pictures updated. Personally, I would like to see a little bit more pictures, I guess. I think it's nice to have a little bit of the wording in there that says what it is, but I think we should focus more on pictures and maybe a little bit less on you know, for instance, big box retail, what's considered a big box retail store. You can kind of tell by looking at it. I think it's almost self-explanatory. So if we take some of that out and put some more pictures in, that's a perfect example. I mean, you've gone through 2 pages, and I think there was one thing in Londonderry on it. So really getting them changed to reflect what's happened in Londonderry. You know, personally, I think a lot of the new development in Londonderry looks fantastic. So let's take that, build on it, and let developers see
Not going
what's
through the
new.
photos that I've seen that have come in. I think we've got some good ones there that
Yeah.
are Londonderry. You know.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, I didn't resubmit any photos because I submitted a whole presentation last time. So I think you guys have a good idea of what I like. But that's just kind of my 2 cents. Is the biggest thing is, you know, getting more up-to-date pictures to it. Do you mind going to the front page, Mike?
The front
Of the
page
lookbook.
Of the lookbook.
Yeah.
This is a section that was never done.
And like that to me, for instance, right? This is the front page of our lookbook, and it's a blurry picture of the town of Londonderry, welcome to Londonderry sign. To me, it's not, if I was a developer, that would be very unappealing to me. So just updating it and making it look a little newer, that's all. Let anybody else talk.
And, you know, in that regard, Mr. Chairman, we have a new administrative support coordinator, Kirsten Hildenan. She has a design background, and so I would certainly offer her expertise in, to Mr. Butler's point, making this look like a professional document.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I agree that it's kind of, you know, fuzzy and you can actually see the pixels in it, like it was made in MS Paint.
part of my problem. It looks like a board put it together.
Yes, it was. So it's far from being professional. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, it has withstood time.
Correct.
Okay, but it needs to be brought into the 21st century.
Yeah.
Hello, Tony DiFrancesco. I'm a new planning board member. So I think Arthur brought up a very important point that kind of got glossed over and run over. And I think it's important to understand that regardless of what you put together, it's going to be a fluid document and should be a fluid document forever, day by day, week by week, month by month. But the comment he made was very important for any land planning operation, is to understand that most people know very strongly what they don't like, but it's hard to say what you do like. And so all we really can do is to react to the presentations that we're given and hope that it mirrors some of these photos in the lookbook or not, as was the case a few meetings ago at the planning board. So I think Art's point is very on point and very important concept to understand, that regardless of what we have in these books, you're still going to see stuff that you don't like, and that part's not going to go away. And everybody's picture of what is aesthetically pleasing is different. We know from a culture of the town, some of us having been around as long as we have, we know very well what the town is trying to get to, and sometimes getting there is very hard. But I think what we have in town, I think it's been a good journey, both for the developers and the land planners and the land planning boards that have been in place for a long time. So we already have a good foundation. I think the lookbook is a really good resource for applicants to have, but there's no reason for it to go 13 years. And a result of this process, it probably won't go another 10 years, 12 years, 11 years, 8 years. Week to week, we get a project that we like, that just got built, let's throw the photo in. We have a lot, we're going to get more and more and more. So that would be my comment. Thank you.
I think the Dairy Medical Center seems to get commented quite a bit. The people just seem to really like it, and that was actually a process of going through here, and with the planning board also. And I think and Jake had a lot of input, and Jim had a lot of input. And, I think we all did, and it was very frustrating we had a special meeting and everything just to try to get things resolved. And I think there was some differences there between the engineer understanding they have to work with Woodmont also, but it's got to fit together into what Woodmont has, which is not really much.
Right.
I think there's some pictures there that are probably really deserving, probably more for Woodmont, but that's my opinion right now. So, or even like a PUD or like a mixed use concept type of village concept.
Absolutely, I would agree. And that project is a little bit different because it has its own site plan. It has it's a PUD, and it has its own rules outside of some of the town rules and regulations. But the look itself still, to your point, was regulated well. And I think the product that came out of all those meetings helped the town and helped the developer at the same time. And you got a pretty good looking building out of it. So, and now you have somebody who's just here said, we're mimicking it after that building. So it worked, so.
Yeah, I think it was helpful for them, it was helpful for the town,
Sure, absolutely.
Oh,
I just wanted to emphasize a little bit on what Mr. D just said, about, constantly updating it. A perfect example is a year from now, there's gonna be a couple different buildings that are up and new and look really good. Those should get put into that, so it's an up-to-date document. So I just wanted to emphasize on that a little bit. What came before you guys tonight, with Woodmont, by the time we're gonna finish this book, and that's probably not even off the ground, but next spring, it might be up and finished, so it'd be nice to add that to it.
Yep.
So just constantly updating.
another
it.
picture.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir. One of the things I was thinking about with regard to this lookbook is, we really would like it to be a tool, and I agree with the statement that we're not gonna make, folks that come in that present things we don't like, we're still gonna see that. But even thinking back to the Derry Medical Center presentations, that was painful, more for them, frankly, than for us. And I wonder if we develop a more effective tool for them to kind of maybe, gosh, they've seen this kind of thing before, let's not bring that before them. Maybe the developer can save themselves some pain down the road. And I think that's one of the things I'm looking for.
So yes, that's on point. However, the problem is, shame on us for having made it that painful to not have been clear and concise enough in our rules, regulations, commentary, whatever, to help them be successful. As land use boards, we should be helping pull along the applicants, not pushing them away. And I think in some regards that happened in that project. And because it was a POD, they weren't going to walk. They were going to keep struggling, and it was going to continue to be painful. But in a different situation, I'm very confident that the applicant would have walked away and said, these people are nuts. And I strongly believe that you set the expectations on the front end, not on the back end, and you make sure that everything is clearly defined. And in that particular project, it wasn't. And not only that, there was some mixed messages that were going on as well, because this board would say that, and then that board would say that, and this commission would say that, and there was some of that going on as well. Now, that's on us, I think. And so this is, Mr. Town Manager, this is a huge step forward for us to be even having this combined meeting, to have this discussion. This is huge. This is, I was having a conversation with somebody today who said, well, it's a total waste of time. No, it's not. This is really important stuff. Because driving revenue is the only thing that we have right now. So let's do more of this. Let's work together more. Let's be concise, direct, have meaningful documents that we can provide to them so that they can be successful, and we can pull them along and say, hey, thanks for pouring $2,500 million trillion into Londonderry and helping our tax base. Thank you very much. Not hitting them over that, banging them over the head because the shutters are blue instead of green. You see what I'm saying? And this is awesome. This meeting is awesome, and I hope that we can do more of this. That we can work together, and we can make things more precise to help these applicants and these developers and whatever to be successful, and be taxpayers in the town of Londonderry for a long, long time. So, sorry, I got on the soapbox.
And if I may, Mr. just to amplify a couple of those points. So, yes, that particular project, I think, could have been smoother, pretty much from start to finish. And I think that not only have boards, the Heritage Commission and the Planning Board, I think, learned a lot from that, but the staff has learned a lot from that as well. And we are very deliberate in trying to advise applicants, hey, this is what you're probably going to hear from the board. This is what the board is probably going to want incorporated into this project. That element of this project, that's not going to go over so well. So we try to give that practical advice. The challenge has been, pointing to those concrete, specific documents or pictures or language that will give even more guidance instead of just us, sort of characterizing what we're hearing from the boards on any given occasion. Actually being able to point to something that's up to date and of concrete assistance, I think, is a big step forward, and it's going to make this process a lot more efficient, both between different boards, but also to the extent the staff is involved as well.
Sure. Sorry.
Usually the first point a developer comes is, probably what would come from our webpage.
Yeah.
Really, the second is staff.
Right.
Staff is really gonna set the tone.
Yeah, so, and I want to be clear, I'm just as guilty of slamming people over the head as anybody else. And so, but everything is a learning process also. So, the town learned by the PUD, I learned some things about a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we got to move forward. Moving forward is what we need to do. So, anyway, I'm good.
Yes, Ted Combs, town councilor, voting member on the planning board. I know there's some commentary about, having a narrative in the book, but also pictures speak 1,000 words, and architects, developers, builders, they're very visual people. And I think having more pictures of things that we would like to see in the town architecturally built, when they can get an idea in their head of a visual, it makes more sense to them that way instead of just reading something. Architects and, designers, they're very image people, and, they don't always learn well from written word. They learn more from imagery. And I think having more images of what we have will be more beneficial. And from that note, I'd like to lead us into our files of pictures. I think a recommendation would be you go folder by folder and have the person who actually presented the pictures come and speak to them.
Absolutely, yeah. So oddly enough, you kind of echoed what I was about to say after you stepped down from the podium. I think it would probably be best for each person who took the pictures to come forward and talk a little bit about why they took a picture of that particular building, what things they liked, and then have some light discussion. I emphasize light because there are something like 50 pictures. So just so that we're not here until like 11 o'clock at night, have some quick discussion, talk about things we like and don't like. I'm going to be taking some notes. Obviously, we're also being recorded, so we can look through these discussions afterwards and try to pull out maybe at some later time the finer points of discussion.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, I know that this board typically keeps its own minutes, but we do have a recording secretary who probably on a one-time basis would be happy to take, almost transcribe this meeting if it would be helpful to the board.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Looking at John.
I don't want to step on
No.
anybody's
Step-
toes.
Step away.
Next meeting's minutes are going to be really easy, huh?
Oh, I like this. One thing, I think all the pictures are terrific, but there's some good repeats, which is good because that shows us what we are interested in. So,
And if I may,
Ian, why don't you come closer so you can hear,
Well,
Just-
also, because that's one of my pictures.
and if I just make
Oh, okay.
make sure, so it'll take longer than 5 business days to produce those more extensive minutes. So if we could just make sure that we have some very basic minutes in order to comply with 91A with respect to this meeting, that would be appreciated.
I'll do the basic ones.
You can just say we reviewed 50 pictures.
Got it. Got it. Done.
I think everybody will agree with me that the Enterprise building
And
is
could you just introduce
just a
yourself?
remarkable building as far as design and use.
And could you just introduce yourself real
Oh,
quick?
sorry.
And
Ann Champa, planning board member.
Thank you.
That plan sailed through, I think, heritage planning because of its design. It's classic, yet it's modern, and it really stands out for its design in that area. It stands prominently on a hill, and it's just amazing. Every thing they used in that building. This one also, I picked this one because it of the first floor, the roof covering across the front, it kind of lowers the scope. It makes a 3-story building look shorter to me, even though I took it on the upward slope. I really like that design. It's classic and it has stood the test of time over in the clock tower area.
That was one of the first, buildings on, that was really done with a
Levin's
town had
property.
his, like, it was, Dennis Sargent was the developer. I don't know who the architect was, but
Beautiful.
Dennis pretty much guided both that. And the McDonald's across the street from it was done in that style also, but I think that's one of the sore points that I've been called out on as a member of the Heritage Commission.
I won't say anything about the McDonald's building.
Yeah, we won't say anymore.
I-
It'll be a whole
I'll
longer
pass on
discussion.
that. But I thought the Shaw's building and its transformation recently, a building, another plaza that has stood the test of time. They redesigned some areas of the front, but the trim detail, the horizontals, and the coloring just makes it stand out. Nice, clean lines, a great design, I think. This is the Clock Tower building. We know it. It's another one that stood a test of time. It's a very large building, but all the different facets of it make it very interesting. And that green grass courtyard is just wonderful for the people who work there also. This one is the St. Mary's Bank on the other end of that building. Classic designs, wonderful window styles. Another one. I just can't talk about this whole area. It's a perfect setting for this building. It sets back from the street, has nice trees in its parking lot and around it. And this, although the entrance is set back, you clearly know where it is because there is parking right on that area too. Here's a corner picture of it. Nice, landscaping they have there. American flag. Drive-through still works like it was intended. Actually, the town hall was in that building at one point. So there's been a lot of uses, but another one that stood the test of time. Sorry, but anyways, I think that's it for me.
Good pictures.
Yes.
Nice job. You picked a lot of places that I wouldn't have expected to see. I kind of thought we'd get a lot of pictures of the same buildings from everybody, but you picked some good ones that I wouldn't have expected to see in there. Good job.
Really?
Yeah.
I think this is mine. I'm David Colglazier, a member of the Heritage Commission and Historic District Commission. I chose this one just because it's an adaptive reuse of a historic structure. They've done a lot with it. It still retains a lot of the original flavor, but it's just in a specific category of adaptive reuse. Next. I would take a better shot of this, but that's the one I got, the Roby House, which again is an adaptive reuse of an old house that's been turned into offices. I think everybody's familiar with it, but with a little better shot, then it would give the developer an idea of how they could take some other structure and do something else with it. Next. This is for a sympathetic addition. There are better shots of this. This is the Aviation Museum at the airport. It's an Art Deco building on the right, successfully well hidden by the tree from this particular angle. But on the left is the addition called a Schlosser addition. But it carries out some of the colors and structures of the main building. So it's a sympathetic addition to a building. Next. Again, this is an adaptive reuse. This was a tavern at one time.
White's Tavern.
Yeah, it was a tavern at one time, and now it's been turned into residential units. I think there's 2 units there. There could be more, I'm not sure. But anyway, it was used as a tavern. It would have been a place where people would have spent the night, traveling, etc. And it's not a tavern that we would think about nowadays where you just go and drink. There was
I was saying it was 4.
it's 4 units.
4 units?
Okay.
4 units in there.
Next one is, a structure for it's an office structure for a specialized warehouse that is off the road. You can't see it from the road. But the people who put up the office building came to us and we suggested that they put a little peak in their roof, which they were happy to do. but they could have done a worse office building to make it less expensive, and, you know, who would care? But it's a nice idea to put forth to let people know that we appreciate what they do to make a nice office building. And it is different from the entire structure itself, because they couldn't make an addition to that specialized warehouse that would be very attractive. And the next one is a reuse, adaptive reuse. This is the restaurant down in Wyndham, Common Man. And so there's a barn there, a silo, and it's just as an example of adaptive reuse to keep an old structure and do something else with it. Next is a premium, what I would say, a premium office building.
Bless you.
If you get close to it, whatever, you can see that they spent a fair amount of money constructing the building with details. It's fairly modern. Again, it's down in Wyndham, but they didn't spare much money in making that particular building. But it's a nice looking building. It's a premium office building. Next.
That's it.
Okay, I sent in two more. One of them was the Prime Food Warehouse. I think it's a rather attractive warehouse. Silver metal with some red decorations on it. And I think that is just an example of what you can do in the industrial area. The other one was that I hadn't taken was the Max addition, where they put an ice cream stand on the end of their building. So that would be a sympathetic addition that took down that sort of unattractive to me addition where they used to sell the ice cream, and now they've constructed something entirely sympathetic with the rest of the building. So a sympathetic addition, that's it.
Okay. It's the old one.
That's the ugly one.
So again, take homes. Now, I did not pick any pictures that are actually currently in town. I actually went to an architect's website. This particular architect actually were the creators and architects of Woodmont originally. DPZ are the architects. And so I went through a couple of their different projects across the country, and I found designs that I thought looked very New England in nature and would fit our area very well. Whether it be for a mixed-use area or, residential, or even just the different architectural designs of these buildings, I thought would fit well with, whether it be a single building or a multitude of buildings. Here you can see, a square kind of setting, two-story buildings, good architecturals for the roof lines, a clock tower. You can move on to the next picture. Another one here is a streetwise with brownstones going down the street, and I thought the different roof lines were very appealing. Here's a different angle of kind of the same look of the area. Certainly here, I thought this would look well within like the Woodmont kind of area, with different brownstones going down the line. And again, different architectural types, but I thought would fit well within our New England region here. Next one, Mike. Here, I thought was very interesting. I felt like this was kind of a mix of New England and kind of a Maryland kind of area with your different roof types, and with certainly the pillars on the buildings. Certainly, I think it broke up the buildings quite well and the different colors and tones. Here's just a nice residential street setting. Next, Mike. Here's, different rows of houses, I thought very residential in New England looking as well. Again, you have the brick steps, you have, the trees lining the roadway. I thought this looked very, brownstone New Englandy. And again, good residential buildings that, they're not brick, but they were well wooden clad buildings, I thought. And I wanted to add this in here. This is an existing industrial pharmaceutical user that is in New Hampshire, and I thought would be a good example of types of materials and exterior that would fit well within our commercial industrial areas. Certainly there may be rooftop units on top, but they enclose them and they hide them well. And you can certainly see the tanks on the exterior that they use for their different gases and different uses that they may be for. But certainly there's glass details in certain areas and different colors on the buildings, and not just a monotone building. If anyone has any comments, I will respond. Next.
There's some good styles in there, I think, for ideas, that,
I mean,
even though it's more of like an urban, situation, but some of that is here, UD.
It is, certainly, but also a lot of those kind of architectural types could be used on a single building too.
Yeah.
So that's why I say pictures, speak 1,000 words, and architects sometimes need to see different architectural designs so that they can get an image in their head and be like, oh, that would be wonderful for this space.
And one of them, they kind of reminded me a little bit of Lewisburg Square in Boston, Beacon Hill.
Exactly.
There's a lot of different design techniques, but it's just a very pleasant, pleasing, look to the whole thing.
Exactly.
Okay, I believe these are mine. Chris Kenny, Chairman of the Heritage Commission. So I chose this first one as a good example of signage that we like, mostly just because it's a monument-type sign. It's got some stone around the base that I think softens the sign a little bit. I wish there was a little more landscaping around it, but I think this gives a good idea of, the type of look we'd be looking for in a sign rather than like a monolithic metal sign by itself. So this is Bellavance Beverage. I like this building a lot, mostly because we're typically a little less restrictive with the design concepts we're looking for in industrial buildings up in the industrial park. But this is a great example of an industrial building where they went above and beyond and really softened the otherwise usually monolithic look of a big box warehouse type building. And they added a bunch of brick. There's some woodwork. I think it just looks great for the industrial park. So this is the bus station off of Exit 5. I love the way they made this building look. The steep pitched roof with architectural shingle, the windows in the front. For a bus station, I think this really kind of keeps the character of our town. One Verani Way, for a multi-office building, I thought this was a great way to design this space. Specifically, even though there's those pitched roofs on the front are kind of design only, it still makes the building look a lot nicer than if they just kept the flat roof line all the way across. This is a convenience store and gas station over on Independence Drive, I think. Liberty, you're right, Liberty, thank you. And I just like the look of this for a gas station. We typically, when we're talking to people trying to develop gas stations in town, we try to get them to do a little bit more of a peaked roof, dormers, stuff like that. And this kind of just fits that description perfectly, so I thought it was a really good addition.
Good shadow down in the lower right.
I think that was probably me.
guess I'm up. John Mahan, Heritage Commission. Another view of David's coach stop here. I grabbed this primarily because of the coloring of the building, the use of the shutters and the windows, which I love, and the multi-level roof as an example to architects. This is an office complex. It's one of several very similar buildings in town on Commons Drive, I believe it is. Some of these have sort of a faux clock tower to them, but there's a lot of architectural detail here that I found attractive and would recommend to an architect coming in. This is, I'm sorry, I've forgotten the church.
Orchard Christian Church.
Thank you very much. Oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. This is the Orchard Christian Church. Again, they've done an addition on this to recently before us, and they've incorporated it very well, in David's words, a sympathetic addition to the existing building. But the multi-level roofs, the use of particularly the second-level windows, I find attractive, and I think it's a good recommendation for an architect. This is a building, Poor Boys Restaurant, that I have watched evolve the whole property over the years. And I wanted to include something like this to have something on a smaller scale that somebody that was coming in could take a look at. This has some cute New England detail to it, but they've also done a lot with their stonework, with their landscaping, with really hiding their parking to the rear part of the building. And I think for a smaller operation, they've done a very nice job and presented something that I could recommend. And this is Trend Moving and Storage. This is basically a commercial or industrial facility that they've added some nice detail. You can see the coloring on the cinder block. The entrance, I think in particular, I would suggest to you is kind of attractive, and to Chris's earlier point, shows that you don't have to have a one-block look to these industrial buildings that go up. This is something a little bit more creative.
This is, yeah, it looks a little familiar. I took these quite a while back, so this is Woodmont. This is the Dairy Medical Center, which I think is terrific looking. It kind of blends both some colonial aspects with more of a I'd look like mid-Atlantic style, maybe some of the federal style. This is Dennis Sargent's creation. This exemplifies colonial New England, peaked roofs, earth tone colors, kind of a black asphalt shingle. And the Enterprise Bank, which I think is a terrific design. I think several of us agree with that. So, the Elliott and Londonderry. This went through a metamorphosis with the Heritage Commission. So, of course, the feature is a nice peaked roof, good glass area because they wanted to get a lot of light in there. So it's a blending of some of the colonial aspects. And Dick Ignagnos worked with us, and Dick was terrific to work with. And he took a lot of notes. This is Bellavance Beverage. And I was probably a little too close. I had one further away, which I didn't put in because it was hard to make out, but it has just a nice, pleasing look to it for an industrial building. It's, earth tone between the gray and the brickwork and everything. It just seems to fit right in the countryside. It fits in with the other buildings also. And this is American Tire Distributor, which is up in the North Woods. Very few people probably see it, but they've done a very, very pleasant design. It's blending the two different colors. It's to me is like what a modern industrial building should be. Flat roof. You don't see anything on the top because of the angle I took it at, and Not many people will see it, but if you know, drive all the way up Sims Road, there's a nice little circle where they are, and I guess that's it.
Giovanni Verani, member of the planning board. I also like the bus terminal. Think what I like with the bus terminal is I think I think it's well appointed, and you'll see like the granite, the full granite accents over the windows, and the volume of the windows, and some of the downlighting and things, and they do keep their property very well maintained and landscaped. I think I'm a sucker for brick, though. I mean, brick and granite and any of those harder surfaces like that. I do like cedar, though, too. Now, I wish I had a better picture of this. And we should have their industrial side of the thing, let's see, that one. So the gentleman that owns this operation was gonna get me better photos, but this is actually an industrial use. So it's North Point, it's in Derry. They use some pretty modern, but I feel attractive facade materials, and they blended it with some wood. Again, I think a big emphasis when you guys look at plans should be on windows and, you know, the landscaping and the windows, and I think it adds a whole, you know, it's the eyes to the building, right? So I encourage you to actually take a look at some of the newer materials. So that is actually industrial, and if you go to the next, the one that had the letters across the top, that one right there. So that is all tied in with that building. And I know some of you folks have pointed out how the offices and the industrial side of an operation can tie together. And I thought that was nice. So they kind of carried, and I really wish I had better photos of this facility, and he was supposed to get them to me, but he never did. So I had to take it off of the website. So again, they blended their two operations. That's my building. I just, what I like with the building is the brick and using some other different elements with the stucco out front. The one thing you'll notice with that building too is the windows, and the windows are actually tinted. So I do think that adds an element to a building. So when you're looking at the overall architectural, I'm not sure if you look at windows, but I think it adds an element to it.
That's a reflective tint, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and in the windows themselves, we were just going to go straight windows across it, and I actually think it worked out pretty well with the Heritage Commission, or it was the Historical Commission back then. They asked for mullions, so I think it does break it up, blends that traditional look back into it, and we added the granite over the windows as well, and you know, and we had the granite up in the peaks, and you know, broke up the overall look of the building, and we hid all of our any of our mechanicals in that peak right there. So yeah, that is a flat roof building, but we were able to hide them all in the channel. So, and I like metal roofs. I know at one point in time there was a comment from the Historical Society about a metal roof, but I think a metal roof can be actually as traditional as some of the asphalt products out there. So
Even metal roofs look like asphalt shingles now.
yeah, and they're always, you know, asphalt roofs look good when they're new, but I think metal roofs look good for a long time.
Yeah, there's a lot of metal roofs you see in Vermont.
Yeah, well, they're used up north. They're used in a lot of traditional farming applications, and you know, when you're transitioning from, well, I like them. So, thank you.
Good evening, Lynn Wiles from the Planning Board. I probably failed at my homework submission a little bit here. I put in one picture of a development I don't like, and I just came across this development in Epping, and to me, it just has no character. And I don't know how to describe it. I'm one of those people, I can tell you what I don't like better than I can tell you what I do like. But it just had no character, and I just kind of wonder why someone would want to even live in a development like that.
Yeah, it's broken up nicely in the front. So
But there's, no shutters on the windows. It's very plain, and I just so it was just something I came across. This is a picture of a mixed-use development down in Malvern, Pennsylvania. It was a city block that was knocked down and rebuilt, and I thought they just did a really nice job with the different contrast and materials and the breaks in the large faces. It was 3 stories of apartments above, business storefronts on the bottom. Wonderful bakery there called The Buttery. I highly recommend it if you ever make it to Malvern, Pennsylvania. But I thought they just did a nice job. And I also like the way they put the trees along the road. And I just wanted to make a couple of general comments too. Number one, when I go into a development, I typically see the trees and the flowers and the grass and see how well that's taken care of. I see that more than I see the building. I think generally speaking, somebody building a building wants to do a nice building, but the devil's in the execution after it's up. So that's one comment. And my other comment is I think they're doing a really nice job up in Woodmont. I didn't take any pictures of Woodmont, but I think Main Street looks really nice. I think the Baldwins look really nice. It's kind of a modern take on an apartment complex. And I like that. I'm not a big fan of the big peaked shingled roofs. I think sometimes they just make a building look out of scale, out of proportion. But that's pretty much it.
I think we got some real good pictures.
You just kind of mentioned something that caught my attention, and now I'm looking at the lookbook. Okay, we do talk a little bit about landscaping in there. Yeah, okay. There's some good landscaping discussion.
Yeah, and Chris, what caught my eye over the weekend? My wife and I were driving out to Peterborough, and we went past the development in Amherst, and it was a nice building, but they hadn't mowed the lawn in probably 4 weeks, right? And just you would think the building was closed. It was open for business, but that's what I noticed. I noticed how well they take care of the buildings after they're built and they're established.
I think a good example of that, and it's been in here. I think a good example of that, and it's been in here a couple times, is the clock tower. Ann had taken a picture of the front of St. Mary's Bank. That looks a lot different than it did even 8 months ago. They had somebody come in and update that landscape. So I do have to agree with you on that.
I just want to mention,
Is the microphone in?
I just want to mention there were more trees on the property, especially on 102. And they had, one thing I liked about the landscaping, they had berms out front, undulating the landscape too. It wasn't just a flat level area. And that really, like you said, adds character to the landscape there, the building, and it's green is good. Thank you.
Yeah, it does. The multifamily, Johnny, that you're building with the landscaping. I mean, it was, we didn't quite like the front, just the building itself, but with that landscaping there, it seemed to really set it out into a very pleasing image. So the landscaping does play a large part, probably a larger part than I probably realized, but I'm learning.
And with regards to landscaping, I know lots of times people look at the newer developments, they go, why did they level that site and then rebuild it? But lots of times, Jake could speak to this, but you kind of have to pull out the old mature trees because the damage to the root systems and things. But if you drive by attractive subdivisions and they're more tenured, you'll see when that landscaping really grows in and truly looks like some of the presentations you're seeing, you know, matured landscaping, right? Matured trees and things like that in the elevations. I always think it looks nice when you go through a subdivision 5-6 years later and everything, you know, has grown in and established itself and, you know, fills in.
We've had all this discussion about things we like architecturally, landscaping, stuff like that. We're going to have to move forward from here with how we're gonna put all this stuff together, right? How are we gonna get this all into a document, kind of touch on everything that we've discussed? Luckily, we have somebody that's gonna transcribe this discussion, which is awesome. But we're also going to have to compile a plan for the lookbook now. What is the format? What is the layout? What pictures do we want to include? You know, from the design concepts that we've talked about, what did we like? You know, do we want more professional pictures with the right angles and sun exposure and all that stuff? So there's gonna be a lot of discussion about that stuff coming up. I would suggest our next meeting probably kind of focus on that. We've discussed a lot about, you know, design concepts so far, but now it's gonna come down to the kind of administrative part of it. That's my suggestion. I don't know if anybody else has any kind of commentary or what you guys think about moving forward with this. What should the next steps be?
I mean, that kind of makes sense to me, that, I think we do this a step at a time, so we don't rush it too much, but at least to come up with something that is pleasing for all of us anyway, to start with.
Yeah, so I don't think we need to overthink it. I think it can be as simple as a 3-ring loose leaf binder, because all you're trying to do is help people understand philosophically what we're looking for, what the tenor of the town is. And so you're gonna have some developers that will take a little bit of the building on page 2 and a little bit of the building on page 7 and a little bit of the building on page 14, and they're gonna make their building look like that. So to me, it's pretty simple. We have the pictures. We're kind of all in agreement that they were pleasing to the eye, and in keeping with what we're trying to do in Londonderry and what we're trying to suggest to applicants and developers, I would just put it together in a book and have it available. You could even go as far as, for very little money, you could go to wherever and have some duplicated and hand them to a developer who's going to build a 62-unit subdivision. So I don't think we should overthink it. So.
Probably the most important thing is what we have on our website, you know.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. I mean, put them on the website. We have them. Let's use them. Let's put them up. The applicants take a look at it, and then they come to you, then they come to planning board. And between all of us, they should be on the same page, I think.
Yeah, Jeff Penta, planning board member. Definitely agree with Tony's comments there. You know, we definitely don't want to overcomplicate this. It's a document. We have, you know, as you know, the town manager kind of alluded to earlier, a graphic designer interest person, or a graphic designer that would be really beneficial for this project. So I think, you know, my suggestion maybe have, you know, that person review these, you know, review the feedback that we've provided this evening, take the pictures, let's get a proof of concepts kind of together, And then we can start to kind of look, okay, that makes sense there, and really kind of, breaking it out. But to Tony's point, we have the pictures, I think we have the information, we've got the expertise. I think the logical next step would just be get something on paper for us to throw darts at.
I think Jeff just said a lot of what I had to say, from the design standpoint and what Mike had recommended or mentioned earlier. The only thing I would add to it is, from a picture standpoint, back to that, let's make it look like it wasn't done from a planning board or a board. If we can find a way to have some professional pictures done of the images we've taken, so they do have, good angles and they just look better. That brings in that real professional look, I guess what I'm looking for at least, a really professional lookbook, not so much of a board put it together lookbook, And like Jeff just said, I think we've got somebody now on staff that would be able to certainly help us out with that. Maybe not from a taking a picture standpoint, but the layout of it.
We do have one or two people on the town staff who are very good at photography.
Yeah,
So
that would be
that's
great.
certainly an option.
Sure. Yeah, I guess my intent with my comments earlier about, administrative tasks and stuff was not for us to belabor the issue too much, but there is some level of layout and formatting that has to go into this document, right? We have to figure out what text we want to include with the pictures. In my opinion, pictures by themselves are not good enough. We have to talk about what we want in the picture, outside of just saying, hey, this looks nice, maybe copy that. I feel like that's not sufficient. The other thing is, so with the pictures that we have so far, keep in mind also that we're trying to give them an idea of multiple facets of their design concept, not necessarily just what materials they use, but lighting, so we may want some pictures of buildings in the day, some buildings at night, signage at night. As far as backlighting and things like that, there's a lot to cover. So I think it's not quite as simple as just taking the pictures we have so far and putting them in a book.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think those points are all well taken. I guess what I would suggest is that a lot of the text that is in the existing lookbook can probably be reused.
For sure, yeah.
I think the photographs largely need to be updated, but, and certainly the text as well, but I think it's a decent starting point for everybody to talk about.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want any more than like 2 sentences, because they're gonna be looking at the picture.
I think part of the problem, this page is a good example, part of the problem with it is I see more text than I do pictures,
A graphic designer will allow us to.
Yeah, exactly.
paint that picture.
Exactly.
Do you want to add what the building is or the location so the developer can go look at it close up if they're interested?
That might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, I
Some
think that-
design cues from it?
That'd be the only text I'd have in it.
Mr. Chair, I was going to offer a suggestion. I actually think you could reach out to the folks that own the buildings that you highlighted, and they'll probably already have very nice hero images of the properties, because they would have featured them on their website or what have you, or in marketing material. Additionally, one of the things that we use when we market properties is we ask the owner why they purchased the home, built the property, and they tend to be very proud of it, and they might be able to write a lot of your what they feel is, and then you could edit it from there. So there's a lot of really good comments that they'll give you that you could use in the book. So I think that they would be happy to give you the pictures. They'll probably have very professional imagery, and where you don't have it, you could fill in the gaps with town staff or what have you.
I have to agree, probably 90% of the pictures on my presentation at the planning board was off of websites of whatever the building was.
And Mr. Chair, I guess another question in my mind is, we really didn't talk apartment buildings
this evening. I don't recall seeing any pictures of apartment buildings, and we see a lot of apartment complexes coming through the planning board. And they always have there's always a discussion on architecture for apartment buildings, so, I don't know
I
where
was
we want to
waiting for
go with that.
the new 600, odd units that should be going into Woodmont. That would be,
Yep.
we spent a little bit of time on the design of that. But I think there's gonna be new buildings coming along too that could be added. But
Boy, I think so. There's certainly multifamily. I'm not anticipating, I don't think anybody's suggesting we talk about single-family homes in the lookbook, but certainly for big developments, and I look at,
it's only what we have for site plan.
Yep.
use, so
but I think we should at least try to address apartment buildings or apartment complexes. I think that would be a benefit as well with the lookbook.
Yeah, the lookbook currently, I don't think talks about that at all. We have big box retail, office complexes, strip retail, industrial parks, and signage. So we don't really touch on that at all in the current lookbook, so that's a really good suggestion.
Only apartment complexes were there in 2013.
None,
Yeah, right.
very
Zero.
few.
Yeah, a lot of the original lookbooks are other places, because we just didn't have them here. We kind of knew what we liked, and I know one of the towns that would get, will look a little bit like it is Bedford, along that stretch of 101.
All right, yeah, so, I think, again, our next meeting is in 2 months. I don't know, Art, how do you want to, try to do the next one? I know you guys are getting pretty busy with the planning meetings.
Things have been, yes, things are busy, so maybe we'll.
Might be better off doing
we'll
it.
Keep it with Heritage,
Okay,
because we get, well, at least, I think things have tapered a little bit, but Kelly says there's still a lot to come along, so, and she's been awfully busy.
okay. And, we'll keep an eye on it. Tentatively, we'll set it up for the next Heritage meeting in September, assuming we don't also get bombarded with requests.
Yeah, I think we gotta be, there's probably some things we don't really need to take that close a look at, but, I think that would be, because staff is what pushes things along. And I know back in the older days, we didn't have that much, but then, there wasn't that much coming along anyway, but
Right.
it was still busy enough at planning board.
So would some direction from here, Mr. Chair, be to allow maybe the town staff to create some formatting? I think the town manager's got a good idea of what we're envisioning, and maybe he can, as his recommendation was earlier, that he has a member on staff that is very good with this. Maybe that would be how we move forward, is see what she can come up with for a proposed design, and that gives us something to look at the next meeting. Would maybe be the right way about going about
Yeah,
this.
that's a great idea. We more or less already have some directional accuracy, I guess, in the current lookbook, where they can find the direction that we're moving in, and just apply some of the changes that we're looking for, along with some photos. And I guess that'll be the final step, is making sure that the right pictures and text get updated in the final version. So if we can have some kind of rudimentary draft
By all
to look
means.
through, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be, I think, good for us for a start, because, I mean, I think it'll be a metamorphosis anyway, as even we maybe become more professional with our photography. I'm far from being a professional photographer, so trying to get this out of the car window or something. This was back in March, when I was, or the end of March, when I was taking pictures.
Actually, the cable director who is broadcasting this meeting is known for his photography.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Good.
I think we should
And
also try
I
to
just
maybe
want to
at this
thank,
time make up
remember
a
that it was Tom,
list of-
okay.
Oh, go ahead.
That it was Tom Bianchi who had a good hand in developing the existing lookbook.
Yes, it was Tom that originally carried really the whole thing, other than the Heritage Commission just looking at the pictures that we liked, and that got put in. I think even Tom did some of the verbiage that
Yeah, he did.
is there. Yeah.
So it's a good basis to
So
start
it's
from
one
now.
individual on the Heritage Commission that started this, so. And that's what it takes.
David?
I was just trying to suggest that maybe we need to get an idea of what pictures we want. Because if we wait until September and decide you want better pictures of this, then you're gonna have fall pictures or winter pictures. It'd be better to have pictures that are summer pictures where you have more sunshine and nice foliage in the trees, and nice grass instead of sort of maybe fall or even winter images to try and sell the idea. Have nice, if you're gonna have it done, have nice images to produce well.
How long, what do you think the process looks like as far as getting somebody to take pictures for us?
I think we can make very good progress on a draft by the next meeting.
With new pictures?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think that's achievable.
Well, I think good pictures are probably where we want to get it. I don't think it'll happen overnight, but.
No, for
not-
sure. Again.
Not to overburden any, well, especially members of staff. We don't have the depth of staff currently, so.
Yep. And we can also, take the recommendation of Mr. Verani and Jake when you guys were talking about, I know that we're gonna be able to find a lot of pictures online that already exist. Or, we could even talk to owners who may already have pictures, if there's something we're looking for.
What we have in the site plan files of, renderings and.
Right. So if it comes down to it, and we don't have all the perfect pictures we're looking for, I think we still have some options to try to find pictures that aren't necessarily covered in snow or leaves.
Well, I think if we
particularly
can
if
take the pictures that we have and have her draft up a rough draft of it with some verbiage, I mean, she has expertise in that. And then take a look at it and then fine tune it. If we think we need more pictures, we'll go out and get more pictures.
Sure. And as has been discussed
Is that something
earlier
that
in
can
the
be done,
meeting
Mike?
too, I think, this is gonna be a living document.
Yeah.
If a picture is not the right
Yeah.
one, we can always change it later. I mean, this is gonna be a document that lives electronically now too.
Yes.
So, we can always just pull a picture out, pop a new one in there and revise it.
That's what I was thinking, if you do it in a PDF format.
Yeah.
You
Right.
can expand, add new pages.
Yep.
Change pictures, and do a lot of stuff then, if you have it in print.
Right.
But you can print off of a PDF format if you want to hand something out physically. You always have to make sure that we have good resolution so that when it gets printed, it doesn't look bad.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think one of the areas that probably needs to be expanded is, I think what underlies a lot of the comments that I've heard is the mixed-use concept. It was less well-defined, I think, in 2013. I think if I'm hearing, if I'm understanding the board correctly, that is a main feature of the type of development that is desired in Londonderry. And I think having a section that talks about that and shows what that is may make some sense.
Yeah, definitely. As we talked about before too, we don't really touch on all the different types of buildings that we're currently developing, especially mixed use. So, yeah, that's a good idea.
I was just going to echo what Verani had mentioned, and maybe a little bit of art of, if we can't find the right pictures of these areas, but also reach out to the engineers and designers of these sites who presented them. And I know they've presented good buildings digitally to us in the past. If we could provide those within our documents, I mean, those are technically public documents now, so they should be able to hopefully provide those to us. So hopefully our new admin will be able to get a hold of those.
Absolutely. Okay.
So to David and Chris's point, PDF, living document, we've given the town manager now I think, more than enough information to make this thing happen. It's gonna be a living document anyway. It's not gonna be published. It's not gonna be, we're not making 1,000 copies of anything. So my suggestion would be to tell the town manager to just do it. I don't think we need to wait a minute until after somebody can put it together and just have it available. And then when we see it at the next meeting you folks have, you tell the town manager, hey, page 2, yeah. So, and tweak it. And then at the next planning board meeting, the planning board members say, page 7, add shed dormers to the description, because that's really what that picture shows. This picture shows peak dormers. And to your point, Chris, it's gonna be a constant living document. This is gonna happen month after month after month. There's gonna be adds and tweaks and subtractions and whatever, but I don't think there's any reason to wait. We're pretty much all in agreement for the people that were here, that what we saw, we kind of liked. Put it together, do it, and let's go.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, those are all good points. I think, staff can really push this forward, but I just want to make it, clear that what I am looking for is board approval with respect
Right.
to anything that we're
Yeah.
handing to the public. This can't be staff's preferences. It needs to be, and I don't think I heard Mr. DeFrancisco say anything differently. But I do think, and it slows down the process a little bit. We can certainly push this forward at the staff level, but I want to make sure that we don't overstep our role in this either.
What I was trying to say, and executed very poorly, was we don't need to wait until a joint meeting. I think you can present at some point, whoever's meeting is
Yeah,
next.
sure.
This is what we have.
Yeah.
You guys make some changes and some tweaks and whatever, and you say, okay, we're good. Next meeting might be the planning board meeting, you do the same thing, run.
Yep.
Now we've accomplished the same thing as a joint meeting, but we've expedited it and we've gotten it to applicants sooner. So we
makes
can,
sense.
so we can show them the vision.
Or even
Are you
when,
guys okay with that?
At a certain point, they could email it to us.
Exactly. Are you guys,
Right,
would you
yeah,
guys
we
be
can-
okay with that type of a thing? And we're good with that? I just think. That's great. I
Yeah.
think having a joint meeting is just waste time.
We, those would have been my next sentiments. We can get as much done as we can through the staff, and then, after that, I think it just comes down to approval. It's more or less the planning board and the Heritage Commission together coming up with this thing. And then if staff can present us with something that we can all approve and say, yes, we have full board approval from both commissions, we're all set, so. I would say Heritage Commission meets again in September. If we have everything well before then, we can make it an agenda item to make sure everybody's taking a look at it, and if we have any commentary or anything, we'll discuss it briefly, and then we can provide approval or not.
Perfect.
Awesome. All right, that being said, I believe we're probably ready to adjourn this meeting.
Public input.
Public input.
Oh, yes. Last item of business is public input. If anybody has any further comments or questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask the town manager if we had an update or any additional information on 2 Litchfield Road?
Yes, we do. I received yesterday, well, let me back up. After this board's last meeting, there was a trip to the town council, which I think most of this board is probably aware of. There was a discussion at the town council. The direction that I received was to look at this from a legal standpoint with the town attorney, to answer the question whether this historic preservation easement can even be amended, and if so, how. We've gotten answers on that. The answer is that it can be amended, as I initially advised, and there is a path to do that. I have had extensive conversations with the owner and also with potential buyers or lessees who continue to call and ask for the same question. You know, what can be done with this property? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do this? And my answer has been, it's very difficult for me to tell you that right now, based on how inconsistent the historic preservation easement is within its four corners, but also considering zoning, a variance that was granted on this property, and other factors. What I advised the owner was that the ball is in his court to propose revisions that he thinks make sense. And so that has occurred. We have received just yesterday a proposed amendment to the historic preservation easement. I have looked at it very quickly. The next step is for me to look at it more carefully and confer with our attorney about what the path forward is from here. But that would be the update as of tonight.
Okay.
May I speak on that comment?
Of course.
Who is the body that can actually make those changes? Is it the town council or Supreme Court or Heritage?
In terms of the way to get it amended, I believe it will be a combination of the probate court and the Attorney General's office. In terms of the approval for modifying a charitable trust. That may change. I haven't had a chance to discuss it with the town attorney yet, but we've received advice on that being the likely path forward. Ultimately, for the easement to be amended, I believe it's the town council that has that authority, based on how it was created and based on how it is structured. And by authority, I mean the discretionary decision whether to leave it alone or amend it, and if so, how to amend it. That authority, I believe, and the town attorney believes, resides in the town council.
So do you think that the landowner just needs to meet with the town council or also goes to the probate court? I'm confused.
I believe a probate court proceeding will also be required. And the way that, and again, that this is all kind of in flux at the moment. We've received the advice. We've communicated with the owner. But the way I envision this working would be reaching some kind of an agreement with figuring out what we're comfortable with, what the town is comfortable with. The answer very well may be nothing. And if that's the case, then that's the end of the process. But if the answer is, yes, we are comfortable proceeding, the next step would be to come to terms with the applicant on an agreed upon amendment, a visit to the Attorney General's office, and a visit to the probate court to sign off on that agreement. We think that if the town comes to terms with the landowner on an amendment, that those final steps, I don't want to call them a formality, but are likely to be successful. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to clarify for everyone here and for everyone at home.
Certainly. Thank you.
Any further public input? Okay. If I could have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved
Second.
and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Guys have it. Meeting adjourned.